Hello and welcome back to another video on the rest of the debate and to another edition of NXT Out of 10. And yeah, it's a big episode of NXT today, Title Tuesday, 3 titles on the line. So yeah, that's going on, and we kick things off on this week's show with Tony D'Angelo taking on Ridge Holland. It was for the North American title. Tony D defended the belt against the former Brawling Brute Holland. It started with a lockup, quickly turned into a striking contest. Holland scored the first takedown with a shoulder tackle, but the champ was up immediately and fired back. Sean Spears showed up and Tony D seemed to allow him to get in his head for a moment, which led to Holland taking over during the break. This was a fun physical match that showed fundamentals both men have learned in NXT. Holland made noticeable improvements during his time in WWE, and this is a good illustration. However, while the match was fun, it also ended in mayhem. Easy Dane interfered on Tony D's behalf while the brawl was breaking out at ringside, and hooked Holland in the face, allowing a chance to pin him to retain the title. We didn't see anything too worthy here. Most of what we saw looked pretty good, so I'll give it a 6 out of 10. After a break and a quick backstage segment, Bayley came to the ring. She talked a lot about her history in NXT, but also how she cares about Roxanne Perez. But it wasn't Perez who interrupted her, it was Julia. She said she respected Bayley, but it didn't take long for Perez to shout at Cora Jade. They particularly turned into a fight. Bayley and Julia sending them out of the ring, continuing fighting during the break. And at the same time, they were breaking up and fighting in the women's locker room. Yeah, can't wait to see Bayley and Julia team up together. That could be great. Before we saw Wesley taking on Dean Lennox. Lee was giving up some sides, but it didn't stop him taking control and hitting a suicide dive right away. Once they got back into the ring, Lennox propelled him high into the air and then him flat in his face. Lee did a great job selling for Lennox and helping him look like a monster. It wasn't a long match, but for what it was alright, with Lee getting the win. And Williams came out and said he would take on Lee next week in Atlanta. That should be a decent match. But yeah, at the same time, I just feel like NXT aren't really maximising Lee at the moment. Maybe he could be a potential Royal Rumble entry and move up to the main roster. Who knows? But I just wasn't really feeling this in a huge way, to be honest. So I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Heritage Cup was then on the line when the former champion Dempsey took on the man who beat him for the Cup, King. They started off with a nice exchange of takedowns and reversals, but neither man could gain a clear footing until King started to build a little momentum. They started several near falls in the first rounds, but nobody gained a point. Most of the second round took place during a break and saw Dempsey score a point before the show returned. He became a lot more confident once he had a point and began trying to punish King with submissions. King scored a point to wrap up the third round and considered using some brass knucks, but seemed to change his mind. In the end, King retained the cup in the same way he won it, with a low blow that led to a pin. Most of this was enjoyable, but this finish was little to be desired. King was never convincing babyface, so hopefully he stops having to act like this, and that could be a positive to take out of it. So I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Moving on next to Carmen Petrovic against Jada Parker, and after a fight broke out backstage, Jada Parker and Carmen Petrovic were booked in a singles match. Ashanti the Adonis accompanied Carmen to the ring. Both of these women pride themselves on their fighting ability, so there was no time wasted sizing each other up. Both competitors went for strikes immediately. The match had good physicality and some fun moments, but also a few parts felt mistimed and awkward, which is something that comes with NXT being a developmental system. Petrovic scored the win after Kalani Jordan showed up and distracted Parker just for long enough to Petrovic to roll her into the pin. I'll give it 5 out of 10. Like I said, it was alright, but there were a few clunky moments in there. Moving on then to Nico Vance against Brooks Jensen against Stax and Luca Crucifino. After what went down in the North American title match, this match was set up. This was a high energy from the moment the bell rang. They did a great job making it look like all four men couldn't wait to start inflicting some damage. Both teams had some good spots, but the most brutal had to be when Jensen sent Crucifino into steel set shortly before Vance hit a huge lariat on Stax for the win. This was short and sweet. It didn't need to be any more than that. It was highly physical. It wasn't always pretty, but it looked painful. That's a plus. But at the same time, yeah, just I think kind of didn't really have any meaning. Kind of felt a bit rushed with the way it's booked. So yeah, on the whole, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. And then moving on into the main event, Obafemi against Eddie Thorpe. This was booked after Thorpe attacked Femi's last week during the title celebration. Thorpe showed no fear of the champion and took the fight to him with a kick sequence of moves followed by a pin attempt. Femi immediately kicked out and began to assert his dominance. Thorpe is not a small man by any means, but was giving up a lot of size and power in this man. Femi tried his best to look like he was struggling at times, but it was never a moment when it really felt like he was in danger. The champion hit a spanner followed by a flying elbow for the closest 2 count of the match. Femi won with moments later a powerbomb. A fun match that made Thorpe look more dangerous than he has in quite some time. Femi's reign is officially underway, and it's going to be a fun ride if the quality continues kind of on this level. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Yeah, really good match, and I think Femi's title reign is going to start blossoming very soon. And overall, NXT gets a 6 out of 10 for me this week. Yeah, I thought for this week's episode of NXT there was a few ups, a few downs really, but on the whole I thought it was a really decent show. I really enjoyed the main event match. I think we're setting up some interesting angles going forward. Some clunky bits, but yeah, on the whole, a solid show. Right, so that's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Follow us on our socials. Link in the description below for daily wrestling news, meme and content. Subscribe to our other channels on screen right now. That'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.